There's a heating system sitting underneath your feet right now, available in every country, on every continent, that requires no gas line, no electric meter, no furnace, and no monthly bill. It cannot be shut off during a polar vortex. It cannot spike in price when a pipeline bursts in Texas, on the coldest night of the year. The only reason you do not already know about it is that knowing about it would cost one industry approximately $160 billion a year. Stay with me here, because what I am about to show you is not a theory, it is physics. And physics does not care who lobbies against it. The Romans called it Hippocaust, and they heated entire cities with it 2,000 years before the American heating industry decided you needed a $4,000 furnace and a lifetime subscription to stay warm. Roman engineers channeled air beneath raised stone floors and through hollow walls, using the Earth's stable thermal mass to regulate temperature across enormous public bathhouses, villas, and government buildings. They did not invent this principle. They inherited it. The principle itself is as old as soil. Then, around 1952, something shifted in America. The post-war boom had created a new economy built on manufactured dependency. The heating industry, newly flush with wartime manufacturing infrastructure, needed a customer base. What cannot be metered cannot be monetized. And so, quietly, methodically, the education stopped. In 1947, a civil engineer in Albuquerque, New Mexico named Arthur Holden began documenting what he called the ground glass thermal loop, a passive system he had spent 12 years refining on his own property after becoming obsessed with a simple question: why did his root cellar stay 58 degrees in January without a single BTU of purchased heat? Holden was not a dreamer. He was a practical man who had spent the previous decade designing irrigation infrastructure for the Bureau of Reclamation. He understood thermodynamics, soil composition, and material behavior. What he discovered, and this is documented in his personal correspondence archived at the University of New Mexico, was that by combining shallow glass-covered soil channels with simple earthen thermal mass, a modest residential structure could maintain a baseline interior temperature of between 55 and 62 degrees Fahrenheit through an entire New Mexico winter using nothing but sunlight and the ground beneath it. By 1949, reportedly 14 homes in the Albuquerque area had incorporated Holden's design principles, several of them documented in a regional architectural journal that no longer exists in print form. A professor at New Mexico A&M expressed interest in formalizing the research. Holden submitted a proposal. According to letters recovered from his estate, he received a polite rejection and a suggestion that residential heating solutions were best left to the emerging professional HVAC sector. He was 51 years old. He never published formally. He kept building. Go back even further to 14th century Korea, where a heating method called ondol used the earth beneath stone floors to warm homes through entire Siberian cold winters without a single piece of purchased fuel. Korean architects routed low wood fires beneath flat stones, allowing thermal mass to radiate heat for hours after the fire died. The system was so effective that Korean homes maintained sleeping temperature floors around 70 degrees on the coldest nights of the year using fuel consumption that modern energy analysts have described as staggeringly efficient by any historical comparison. Fast forward to 1978, when a study from the University of Arizona's College of Architecture found that passive solar and earth-coupled thermal systems could theoretically reduce residential heating demand by between 40 and 70% in continental U.S. climates. The study received no federal follow-up funding. It was not incorporated into any building code. It sat. Here's why this works. And it is not folklore. It is thermodynamics. Approximately 6 feet below the surface of the Earth, soil temperature stabilizes. In most of the continental United States, that temperature sits between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. It does not matter if it is August or February above ground. 6 feet down, the Earth is a thermal battery, storing energy from summer, releasing it slowly. Through winter, maintaining a temperature that is dramatically warmer than outdoor winter air. Glass, placed at the right angle, acts as a solar concentrator, capturing radiant energy from low winter sun and directing it into soil channels or thermal mass walls. The soil absorbs it, the glass traps it. The mass releases it slowly, over hours, into your living space. The dirt acts as the storage medium. The glass acts as the collector. Together they form a closed loop that requires no electricity, no gas, no pump, and no thermostat. It is not magic. It is the second law of thermodynamics operating exactly as it always has, in full view of anyone willing to look. A 2011 paper from Cornell's Department of Biological and Environmental Engineering found that Earth-sheltered and passive solar hybrid structures in northeastern climates maintained interior baseline temperatures between 52 and 58 degrees through January and February without any supplemental mechanical heating. 52 degrees, that is the difference on a 0-degree night between a pipe that freezes and one that does not, between a family that survives a power outage and one that does not. Here is where it gets dark. The American HVAC industry today generates over $160 billion annually. That number is not incidental, it is structural. It depends entirely on your not knowing what Arthur Holden knew. Think about what that means for a moment. The average American household spends approximately $1,200 per year on heating alone. Over 30 years, a standard mortgage term, that is $36,000. Multiply that by 130 million households, and you begin to understand the scale of what is at stake. That is trillions of dollars flowing year after year to an industry that requires your ignorance to function. Now follow the money. In the 1950s and 1960s, natural gas lobbying groups successfully worked to have passive solar and earth thermal design principles removed from most state building codes. Not banned outright, but quietly reclassified as non-standard construction, which made them unbankable for federally backed mortgages. If a bank would not finance a passive solar earth-sheltered home, builders would not build them. If builders would not build them, the knowledge would not spread. If the knowledge did not spread, a generation of American homeowners would grow up believing that a gas furnace was simply the natural order of things. It was not natural, it was engineered. Physics never changed. The Earth's thermal mass cannot be lobbied. Only your access to the knowledge of it can. Here is what you need, and the total cost will not exceed $30. You will need 6 to 8 feet of black rubber tubing, 3/4 inch diameter, available at any hardware store for roughly $8 to $12. You will need a sheet of single-pane glass or clear polycarbonate, approximately 2 feet by 4 feet, which you can source from a salvage yard or online for $5 to $15. You will need basic tools, a shovel, a utility knife, and duct tape. That is the entire material list. Step 1. Identify a south-facing wall or window on the sun exposure side of the room you want to heat. This is non-negotiable. South-facing orientation is what makes the thermal collection work in the northern hemisphere. Step 2. Dig a shallow trench along the exterior base of that wall, approximately 8 inches deep and 12 inches wide, roughly 4 feet long. Line the bottom with the black rubber tubing in a single coiled pass. Step 3. Cover the trench with your glass or polycarbonate sheet, angled slightly toward the sun, approximately 15 to 30 degrees from horizontal. Seal the edges with duct tape or weather stripping. This creates a miniature solar collector directly above your tubing. Step 4. Run the ends of the tubing through a small gap in your foundation or wall base, one end low, one end higher, and allow passive thermosiphon circulation to carry warmed air or water into your space. If using air, ensure both ends are open to the interior. Wear gloves when handling cut tubing ends to avoid abrasion from the rubber edge. Step 5. Pack soil tightly around and over the tubing beneath the glass. The soil is your thermal battery. It absorbs heat during daylight hours and releases it gradually through the night. Within 48 to 72 hours of installation, you will notice a measurable baseline temperature rise in the adjacent interior space. On a clear winter day, the air temperature inside the collector channel can reportedly reach between 90 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit, even when outdoor temperatures are in the 20s. That heat does not vanish. It moves into the soil, into your home. That is it. No permit required for a below-grade exterior modification of this scale in most jurisdictions. No special tools. Nothing complex. Let me be honest with you. The system has real constraints, and I would rather you know them than feel misled. This works best in climates that receive at least 4 hours of direct winter sunlight per day. If you are in the Pacific Northwest or northern Minnesota in January, your results will be more modest. This will not replace a mechanical heating system if you live in a structure with severe insulation. Deficiencies, or in an extreme climate with prolonged cloud cover. And this is a supplemental system. It raises your baseline, reduces your load, and cuts your bill. It is not a complete solution for every home in every climate, but for the majority of American households, roughly 60 to 70% based on sunlight. Availability data from NOAA. This kind of passive supplemental system could meaningfully reduce heating costs and provide genuine resilience during outages and emergencies. Arthur Holden died in 1971 with no patent, no royalties, and no obituary in any major newspaper. His letters are in a box in a university archive that receives, on average, fewer than 3 visitors per year. But the physics he understood, the simple, elegant, unstoppable physics of soil and glass and sunlight that never went anywhere, it was always here, waiting underneath the frost line, patient and constant, the way natural law tends to be. They can lobby governments, they can rewrite building codes, they can pull funding from university research programs and quietly reclassify inconvenient knowledge as non-standard practice. But they cannot lobby thermodynamics, they cannot patent the ground, they cannot meter the sun. What cannot be metered cannot be monetized, and that is precisely why this had to disappear. Now you understand why. Share this with someone paying too much to stay warm this winter. They deserve to know what one industry spent 70 years and billions of lobbying dollars trying to make sure you never learned.